afternoon, all friends and supporters and foes alike. It's a good topic. Normally I would have been very attracted to it. I would have been happy to speak on it. And I would have requested extra time from the organizers. But I think I'm quite sad in some ways. You all know the results already. But this is American elections, and I do, as you all know, I teach America. I am a product of this school and of this university. Some of us here are the first decade of JNUS, so we are here for the long haul. So one of the things that's very interesting about American elections is that it has been, so far, a fairly smooth transference of power. And that was seen as the USP, or the kind of, strong support for democratic forces and ideas, because ultimate democratic idea is to transfer power peacefully. And the elections are calendarized, process-driven, and every 50th state has a stake in it and has a say in it. As you know, or you may not know, I'll give you some of the statistics later on, but just to brief you, there's a framework I've adopted with great effect on several occasions in the last year, talking about American elections. And that is, if you can use the 4 Ps, the people, the politics, the process, and finally the P which I've put in is psychology, which none of us know much about. And the polls and psychology is something you have to just, wing it. But these 3 Ps, people, politics, and process, will help you understand some of the major changes that I've been seeing happening over the year in this particular elections. This election, from the time Hillary Clinton actually declared her candidacy, is, by all standards for me and for many women around the world, a historic one. We have long bemoaned the fact that the American democracy or republic has not elected a woman to its top leadership position, and that's a shame. And she, to me, epitomized, nevertheless, never mind what her negatives are, we can discuss those things, she epitomizes a political persona who was also a feminist and has worked in the public sphere from the 1970s, when many of you were perhaps not a dot on the earth, isn't it? It feels sometimes strange, in the 70s we were here in JNU thinking that we can change the world, and that's what she started with, that she could change the world. Now, such a public figure with many qualifications, again, I'm not going into the contestations of what she did and how she did it and what were the scandals, what were the major factors, all of you have been reading the papers, but the fact that she was both a political activist on issues, as well as having given her time to a major political party, and then serving in public offices. I'm not counting her work as the First Lady, when she was Mrs. Bill Clinton, and the President Bill Clinton's wife as the First Lady, even though that is also called public service in America. But as a senator and as a Secretary of State, she has seen the government inside out. She has been part of the government. So a lot of the problems, and she is answerable, and she was never, going to say that she's not. But the fact is, just to keep our minds on it. Having said that, you would have thought that she would have had a walkover. But the people and the politics, I just want you to keep that framework. The politics of the United States for the last 5 years has become the most polarized and the most divisive politics. As you know, we have a largely 2-party system. Now, this polarization is not only on the issues of economic inequality, not only on the issues of social and cultural wars, which means people did not agree with each other on the issues of marriage, on the issues of abortion, on the issues of gays and lesbians serving in the military, many other social and cultural issues. So we group them as cultural wars. And there was actually a deep divide between the Republicans and the Democrats on actually governing together. Now the process, this was part of their politics. The process was affected because if you look at their process, they have what is known as a federal government, which is divided itself into the presidency and Congress and the judiciary, with of course the media playing a role. Now, even here, there was such a deep division. As you all know, the U.S. Congress, Senate and the House of Representatives have one of the strongest lawmaking forces for the Americans. And in fact, they do make the law, which is eventually signed into law by the president. Now, the process was affected to such an extent that the Republicans and the Democrats voted along party lines on several of the issues, both foreign and domestic. Okay, so the process was also as divisive. There was the end of bipartisanship. And some have said this started with Bill Clinton's time, 1990, but 2000 with Mr. Bush, it became even more severe with the rise or the impact or the effect on neocons. The ideas were so different, and that's why the implementation of those ideas became very, very different for both parties, isn't it? If you want to have a different idea, you have a different idea of how to implement it, and obviously nobody agreed. So bipartisanship became dead, and the process began to suffer from what is known as gridlock. You know what a gridlock is, right? It just stops, nothing moves. And the government kept having shutdowns because of Republicans at one time, or the Supreme Court judges and other appointments did not get past the Senate because of the Democratic opposition. So this went on. So there was a real problem. But the deeper problems that began for the Americans was that the globalization that they had so ardently championed did not or was not working for them. So I'm mixing up the framework, but just bear with me. I'm just trying to show you what went on just before this election so that you can make sense of these elections. When globalization began, there was a huge leap of faith into communication technologies, into computers, and we were going to live in a paperless world. It was going to be e-everything. Well, that doesn't work for everyone. Many of us may not agree, but though the issues of globalization resonate around the world, countries like India and China actually quite benefited from American brand of globalization. Now that apart. Now globalization then, what was the problem? Now again, the kind of place that America is, it can be again divided not just by the type of people, women, African Americans, Latinos, young people, millennials, over 60s, veterans. I can give you groups after groups after groups because I analyze them all the time in terms of their voting patterns, in terms of their voter turnouts, etc. There's another way of looking at this, and that is Rust Belt. That is the Middle America, the Bible Belt, which is a little south and some parts of Northwest. Okay? And there's a West Coast and an East Coast. Just visualize the map of the United States and you get that. The reason I'm mentioning these regions, the New England region, I should teach my students all of these things. But the Rust Belt, which is really what we would call Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, to some extent even Pennsylvania, all of these states were also, why were they called the Rust Belt? Because they're the manufacturing belt of the United States. They lost jobs and they didn't get them back. I'm also explaining in some ways that this could be the reason for Mr. Trump's final electoral victory. I'm just hinting at it. I can't understand it, but I'm thinking that's what it is. So, Rust Belt. Then there was this Bible Belt. Now, evangelicals have been traditionally the backbone of the Republican Party. They've always been successful in getting out the vote. The millennials, the liberals, the left, they won't turn up to vote because they didn't like both the candidates. Oh, come on, both are horrible. I don't have a candidate in this race. So you don't turn up. But the evangelical vote always turns up. They don't need anyone to tell them to come and vote. And there is a plus effect. They bring 5 people with them. And those of you who do JNUSU elections, you know, you not only go to vote, you take 5 people with you. Yeah? Or is it 10? At least 5. At least 5. But that's not going to happen with the millennials or the liberals who believe in ideology, who thought this is a utter evil, but oh, I'm so depressed, Bernie hasn't come in, so I just don't go and vote. But I'm not even happy about Hillary, so what the heck? So that's part of the problem. So the Bible Belt has a problem with Hillary in particular, but abortion in particular. And Hillary's ringing statement on abortion, when she began her campaign, after her convention nomination. She got the nomination and then she began the campaign for the general election, and that really put her beyond the pale. The second set of problems that Hillary faced was people. I talked about the process compromising this election and the issues and the events that already put people on so much anger. Hillary was again seen as the quintessential insider. I'm sounding a little incoherent, but that's really because I'm feeling quite sad about it, I must tell you very upfront. The problem of Mrs. Clinton was not only she was in power for many years, she was also part of the Beltway, or what is known as the insiders, what we popularly in India call as anti-incumbency. Now this insider problem, why is there such an anger? There wasn't such an anger on so many other insiders. Obama got through second time. He did. So there's something else beyond anti-incumbency where Hillary is concerned. And the problem was, Hillary not only was an insider, she was also seen as one who was dodgy on issues. And what didn't work for her was the hacking of emails. Never mind, nobody questions the morality of hacking an email. It's very moral to hack, I find, which I don't subscribe to, but this is how it is. You hack and find out the innermost things about a person and say it, but well, it's true then. So you have an issue of distrust, mistrust, and all of this. Why was there so much anger on insider? On the one hand, it was the process of gridlock and governments not working, and yet everybody doing politics as usual and business as usual. So the rich were getting richer, the people who hadn't got jobs were still out on the dole, so there's this anger. So the basis for this election was essentially voter anger, and I can explain that further. The second basis for the defeat of Hillary Clinton. Defeat of Hillary Clinton, there are 3 reasons. And I'm running now because I know I don't have a watch, so I need to stop myself. One, I think it was her own persona. She carried a problem with the people. And I can explain that a lot of millennials felt that she's far too, the older feminists. You think you know it all. You don't even know what it is to be the young person who has to do this and that. She had a disconnect. A lot of women said that, look, we do not think that Madam Clinton even can talk to us about issues. So her problem with women was one of the problems. But the real problem about her was also this fatigue with Washington politics and Obama presidency. Though President Obama carries very favorable ratings even now, but his administration, Obamacare, all of that became Hillary's problem. Even ISIS became Hillary's problem. Okay? So, fatigue. The third is about her integrity and trust issues. And that we can again discuss. Now, why did Trump win? And I'll stop with that. Trump won because the white voter counts. I can give you statistics. I have them. I did bring them. Racial majority. Whites are the racial majority, 77% of the population. African Americans are the largest racial minority, 13.2. Hispanic and Latino Americans are 17.1. Many of you know these statistics. 52% of the voters are women. Just keep this in mind. And you have about 323 million, that's the population, right? And 81% resides in cities and suburbs, okay? And the United States has a total resident population of 324 million. I'm telling you all these statistics, why? Because, you know, if there are more living in cities, I would have thought that the appeal of the democratic message was, should have been there. But no, it was the inner cities or the Midwest, the Rust Belt, that gave Mr. Trump his decisive victory. The rest of the country, I told you, the polarization is so deep. Yellow dog Democrats. You put a dog with a Democrat ticket, the Democrats will vote for them. And I suppose yellow dog Republicans as well. So, you know, Republicans voted for Republicans, Democrats voted for Democrats. Now, the swing states and the swing voters actually decided this election. And more than even the swing voters, because we find that population is whatever the statistics, but the popular vote for Mrs. Clinton has won it. But it is the statewide system that they have of electoral college, which is the swing states, those 4 states, Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. End of story. While in Trump, the white male, yes, we can. We can shake up Washington attitude. Jesse Ventura, at one time, a boxer, got elected in Minnesota. Just like that. Some people go and do this. Then there was also this interest in pushing back the global ideas, open global borders. Border and open, it sounds like an oxymoron, but globally, the idea of an open global society, which we are all working towards, has now received a setback. Because Mr. Trump's ideas have been mostly, I would call them 19th century. But they are isolationist, they are protectionist and nativist and xenophobic and racist. But that's what has been the appeal. And I think the problem of, let's say, the implications of this presidency is going to be both deep in domestic as well as in foreign policy. You all must be familiar, he wants to build a wall, he wants to punish China, he's only going to get along with Russia. There are many others. We don't know the full details of what he's saying. My problem is, how do you now bind, or, you know, this divided nation? Are they going to be actually able to come back and support Mr. Trump? I suspect that this is going to be a very big challenge for them. I don't see this division healing. You all know Bernie Sanders was a movement of his own. Trump calls his movement a movement of his own. He was not a true-blood Republican at all. He does not represent the right or the conservative ideology. Conservative or right ideology in the United States believes in capitalism, believes in free trade, believes in so many other things. You don't see that with Mr. Trump. So there are some other explanations. I hope the fellow panelists, thank you very much for your very kind responses.